When I was in middle school and all through high school, I had a very good friend, was a Catholic. She was afraid that she was going to go to hell and burn forever when she died. And this actually troubled her a lot. She was even depressed about this because she had family members that she knew were not living a Christian life and that they had died. And this made her very sad. And I felt bad for her because the church I went to didn't teach that. So I really, wanted to help her. And so I thought I would tell you a little bit maybe about some of the scriptures that you can have to look for and just understand what happens when we die and what hope we have to look forward to. And maybe you can help your friends as well. First, I explained to her that when we die, we don't go to heaven or hell, but we're buried. We go to the ground, we're buried. Some people are in an explosion and their bodies are obliterated, or they drown and their bodies are eaten by fish or sharks or something. So, a lot of different things happen to our bodies, but God will put them back together. So I told her how we don't go to heaven. We're buried in the ground as if we are asleep. And we call this the sleep of the dead. The sleep of the dead, first Psalm 13:3, because that's where it actually uses that phrase, at least in my version of the Bible, the sleep of death. Okay, so David, you think he probably would have known what happened when he died. And there's also a verse later on that tells us that David is not, that he's dead and in the grave, that he's not ascended to heaven. And so Acts 7:60 tells you what happens to Stephen. Stephen was stoned. I don't know if you know about stoning, but that was a punishment back in the Bible days. That's one way of executing people. And they threw stones at them until they died. Sounds horrifying. But what happened to Stephen at the end of his stoning? He fell as asleep. So did Stephen just fall asleep after that stoning? Stephen was dead. And then one thing to know that I would share with her is what happens when we're in the grave. There's several in Ecclesiastes, but this one is tells you what's going to happen while we're in the grave. So if they were in hellfire burning, they would be aware of that. And there is no awareness. The Bible tells us there's no awareness. So we know that there is a fire that is talked about in the Bible in the end times. I'm not going to go through all that right here today. There is a fire that will burn, and the bad folks are going to be there, Satan for one. And so that does not apply, though, to my granddad who died. So then I explained about what's going to happen after we die and once we're in the grave. And at that time, I explained to her about how that Jesus is going to return to the earth and that he will set up a wonderful kingdom on the earth, and the earth will be renewed. It'll be like the Garden of Eden. He'll set up a new government based on the laws and the love of God. And Jesus is going to need a team. That's a lot of work. There's going to be a lot of people around still. And so he's going to need a team to help with all these new duties. And so those of us believers who have died will come back to life when Jesus returns and at what we call a resurrection. And we will be changed into spiritual bodies, become immortal, which means we will not be able to die after that. Once we are raised, we'll be able to walk through walls, and it'll be a really neat kind of a thing. I can't wait. But there will also be people on earth at that time who haven't died. So just so we would understand that, I wanted to read this about how we will all rise together and meet Jesus in the sky. There are, as he's returning, there are several verses. One of them, 1 Corinthians 15:51 through 53, but also 1 Thessalonians 4:13 through 18. I think this is like a New Living or Living Bible sort of a translation. It says, "And now, dear brothers, I want you to know what happens to a Christian when he dies, so that when it happens, you will not be full of sorrow, as those who have no hope." And I thought of my friend when I read this, that she just felt so sad about all this. "I can tell you this directly from the Lord, that we who are still living when the Lord returns will not rise to meet him ahead of those who are in the grave. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a mighty shout and a mighty shout of an archangel." He's going to be coming, Jesus returning with angels and the heavenly hosts, all kinds of angelic beings are coming with him. It's going to be a big entourage, but he wants us to come and meet him. The great trumpet call of God, and the believers who are dead will be the first to rise to meet the Lord. Then we, or whoever, Paul thought he was going to still be alive at this time, but whoever is alive and is a believer at that time, whoever are alive and remain on earth will be caught up with them, the dead people who are rising, and to meet the Lord in the air and remain with him forever. So comfort and encourage each other with this news. So to me, this was very encouraging to know this as a child and to be able to explain it to my friends who didn't understand, and particularly my one friend. Some of my friends didn't care at all, but my one friend was very troubled about it all. And so are we going to meet the Lord in the air and just hang out in the air? Or are we going to then turn around? Jesus is going to turn around and go back up to heaven? No, we're not going to heaven. It's coming to earth. So there will be this kingdom on earth that we talked about. We will live and reign with Jesus for 1,000 years. That's called the millennium. And we'll have jobs. The Bible calls it that we'll be kings and priests. That's kind of like, what's that really mean? So it means leaders, it means governors, administrators, it means teachers. We'll teach the laws of God and Jesus to these people. A lot of people have never even heard of how to live together in peace with somebody. These will be the mortal people who are still alive on earth at the time. We will be Team Jesus. We're going to be his helpers. And it'll be a peaceful, renewed earth, like I said earlier, like the Garden of Eden. Once we are changed, we won't be able to die, and it means we'll be able to fly. We'll be able to, fly through the universe, really, like the angels. Or we can appear as humans on the earth and interact with the people on the earth. When Jesus was resurrected, he came and ate supper with the apostles, and then he walked through the wall. So it'll be a great time, and it'll be no war and fighting. Satan is going to be bound up into a special prison God's got for him, and he won't be able to influence people to do bad things. So even the animals are going to have a good nature. People are going to be happy, be at peace inside. It says in Isaiah 11:6, and another one in Isaiah 65:25. It says that kids can even have a lion as a pet. Now, can you imagine that now? If you have a lion right now, it might bite your head off, but you'll be able to have a pet lion, kids. I think that sounds awesome. So you understand that when it says like the calf and the lion or the wolf, there are enemies right now. Right now, lions and wolves and leopards, they eat little baby animals, little baby cows and things. But then they're going to get along, and they're all going to be together, and they'll be your pets. The little kids will have them as pets. Can't wait. I'm particularly excited to know that I won't ever have to pull weeds again, because there's not going to be any weeds there. If it's the Garden of Eden, there is not going to be weeds. As a young person, I understood that this whole kingdom idea was why God put me on this earth. I wasn't depressed about what would happen when I died. It was comforting and it was exciting to know what God had in store for those of us who accept Jesus as our Savior and believe and obey him. He wants us to go through all kinds of experiences while we're on this earth that will teach us and make us into the kind of people that he needs to be his teachers. That's why we should always use our talents and try to be the best that we can be. God gave us these talents and gifts so that we can be useful to him in his kingdom. He needs people that can sing. He needs people that are, can do all kinds of things, administrative things. And so we're supposed to be now using those talents and developing them and trying to be as good as we can so that we will be useful to him. I didn't need to worry I would go to hell if I did something wrong, like my Catholic friend did. I knew that, yes, I sinned, but if I repented and had the proper attitude of trying to do better, God would forgive me, and I could use that experience to gain a bit more knowledge of how to be more useful to him. So I hope that all of you can have hope and comfort in understanding this and possibly be able to share it with your friends. I especially hope that each of you takes on the challenge that God has given to you, to all of us, so that we can be the best we can be on earth and be great leaders in his kingdom.